This story is titled, My Brother Stalked and Assaulted My Girlfriend. My parents defended him. Now he's in prison, and they're begging me to help him. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now, let's start the video. Alright, so I guess I should probably start this whole story from the beginning. I, 31 male, grew up with my younger brother, Liam, 28 male, in this typical middle-class neighborhood in Minnesota where everyone had nice lawns, but nobody really knew what was happening behind closed doors. My parents run this successful real estate business together. Dad does the sales, Mom handles the marketing and paperwork. They make good money, but they've always been obsessed with appearances, like unhealthily obsessed, the kind of people who would rather die than have the neighbors know something's wrong in their perfect little family. Liam is 3 years younger than me, and I still remember the day they brought him home from the hospital. That was basically the day I stopped being important. Everything became about Liam, his grades, his sports, his potential. My mom would literally stop me mid-sentence if Liam needed literally anything. Dad was no better. He'd cancel plans with me in a heartbeat if Liam wanted to throw a ball around. Growing up, there were so many red flags about Liam that my parents just pretended not to see. When I was 9 and Liam was 6, I saved up my allowance for like 6 months to buy this gaming system I really wanted. My parents wouldn't just buy it for me. They said I needed to learn the value of money or whatever. But then Liam had some friends over, and I wouldn't let them play with it because, I had just bought it with my own money. The next morning, I found it smashed to pieces. When I showed my parents, my mom just sighed and said, "Well, you should have shared with your brother. You know how he gets when he's upset." Then, that weekend, they bought Liam his own system, a better one than mine, because they didn't want any more fighting. I didn't get mine replaced. I just had to watch Liam play with his new one. That kind of crap happened constantly. When we were teenagers, I had this hamster I really loved. Liam fed it chocolate one day when I was at soccer practice, knowing it would kill it. When I found it dead and confronted him, he just shrugged and said it was just a stupid rat anyway. My parents? They told me I shouldn't have pets if I wasn't going to take proper care of them, like it was my fault. The worst part about Liam is that to outsiders, he seems like this great, charming guy. He does all these things to look good to neighbors and family friends. He'd mow an old lady's lawn or help someone carry groceries, but only if others were watching. Behind closed doors, he was a completely different person. He'd say stuff like, "Mom and Dad will always believe me over you," with this smile that never reached his eyes. And he was right, every single time. In high school, I finally got a girlfriend I really liked. We'd been together for about 6 months when suddenly she dumped me. Found out later, Liam had told her and all her friends that I'd been cheating on her with some girl from another school, complete BS. But everyone believed him because he was such a nice guy. My parents actually said he was being protective of my girlfriend. Like, what the actual? By the time we hit our 20s, I'd moved out. But Liam was still living at home, working at my dad's real estate office, driving a car they bought him, basically being treated like a prince. Every girlfriend I introduced to my family somehow ended up targeted by Liam's concern. He convinced one girl's parents I had a gambling problem, told another I was emotionally abusive. My parents backed him up every time, and I was left looking like the bad guy. Then I met Sophia at the hospital cafe. I was visiting a buddy who'd had his appendix out, and she was on break from her shift as a pediatric nurse. We started talking about how terrible hospital coffee is, and something just clicked between us. She's smart and caring, and actually laughs at my lame jokes. For the first time, I felt like I'd found someone who actually saw me, not the loser version of me that Liam had created for everyone else. I kept Sophia away from my family for 3 solid months. I flat out refused to introduce her to them. Sophia thought I was being weird about it at first, but I eventually told her everything about Liam, all the history, all the messed up things he'd done. I needed her to understand what she'd be walking into. But Sophia has this annoying quality where she tries to see the best in everyone. Maybe he's changed, she kept saying. We're all adults now, and I'd like to meet your parents. She had this theory that family relationships can heal over time. I wanted to believe she was right, that maybe Liam had outgrown whatever made him want to destroy anything good in my life. Part of me also wondered if I was making everything worse by keeping Sophia a secret, like maybe Liam would respect boundaries now that we were older. Maybe keeping her away was just making her seem more like a prize to be won or destroyed in his twisted mind. So, against my better judgment, I agreed to bring Sophia to a family dinner at my parents' house. I figured a public setting with everyone there would keep Liam in check. I told myself I'd never leave her alone with him, not even for a minute. I remember being so nervous driving to my parents' house that Sophia actually reached over and put her hand on my knee because it was bouncing like crazy. She gave me this reassuring smile, like, "It'll be fine." And I just nodded, but inside I was thinking, you have no idea what we're walking into. The moment, the exact moment Sophia walked through my parents' front door, I saw the change in Liam's eyes. It was subtle, but I'd seen that look before, this flash of, hunger, before his face switched to his usual charming mask. He practically shoved our mom out of the way to be the first to hug Sophia, and the hug went on way too long, awkwardly long, until Sophia had to physically back away. My mom was all, "Liam, give the poor girl some space." But she was laughing, like it was cute or something. My dad just stood there with this proud smile, watching Liam be so welcoming. It was like I wasn't even in the room. During dinner, I watched Liam like a hawk. He kept finding these little excuses to touch Sophia, passing the salt, but letting his fingers brush against hers, reaching across her for the bread basket when he could have asked someone to pass it, that kind of stuff. And he kept telling these funny stories about me that were really just designed to make me look like a loser. "Hey, Sophia, did Ethan ever tell you about the time he tried asking Stephanie Jenkins to prom?" Liam was grinning at her across the table. Before I could stop him, he launched into this story. He practiced for weeks in the mirror. I caught him rehearsing this whole speech. Then, when he finally asked her, he got so nervous he threw up on her shoes. Poor Stephanie ran away crying, and Ethan was known as Vomit Boy for the rest of senior year. What Liam conveniently left out was that I had food poisoning that day from some sketchy takeout, and the only reason I went to school at all was because Liam told Stephanie to meet me at a specific time, knowing I was sick. He literally set the whole thing up to humiliate me. But, of course, my parents were laughing along like it was the funniest story ever. "Oh, Ethan was always so nervous around girls," my mom added helpfully. Sophia gave me a sympathetic look and tried to change the subject. But Liam wasn't done. The worst part was when dessert came. Liam somehow ended up sitting next to Sophia, even though he'd been across the table during dinner. He literally got up and moved when my mom brought out the pie. Then he tried to feed her a bite from his fork, staring at her the whole time like they were in some romantic movie. Sophia turned her head away, but he kept the fork hovering there until she had to verbally say, "No, thank you." I shrugged that off, didn't want to ruin the whole night. After dinner, Sophia offered to help clean up. She's just thoughtful like that. I was helping my dad move some boxes in the garage when I realized I'd been away from the kitchen too long. I hurried back and found Liam standing way too close to Sophia by the sink. His arm was resting on the counter next to her, basically blocking her path to the door. "Ethan's always been the safe choice," he was saying in this low voice. "But don't you ever wonder what it would be like with someone who could actually excite you?" Sophia had backed up as far as she could against the sink. "I've asked you twice to give me some space," she said firmly, but I could hear the tension in her voice. When she saw me, the relief on her face made my blood boil. Liam just laughed when he noticed me, clapping me on the shoulder as he walked past. "Your girl's way too serious, bro," he said, like we were sharing some joke. "You should tell her to lighten up." I wanted to punch him right there in his face. I actually felt my hand curl into a fist, but I didn't want to make a scene in front of Sophia, so I just put my arm around her and said we needed to head out. In the car, Sophia was quiet for a long time. I kept looking over at her, waiting for her to say something. Finally, she took a deep breath. "Your brother isn't what I expected," she said carefully. "He's more deliberate than how you described him." "Deliberate? Yeah," I said. "The way you talked about him, I was picturing someone more obviously aggressive or mean. But he's subtle. Everything he does seems innocent if you point it out individually, but put together." She shook her head. "I can see why your parents don't notice. He's good at making it all seem normal." I gripped the steering wheel so hard. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought you there. No, I needed to see it." She looked out the window. "The way your parents just let him behave that way, it explains a lot about what you've been through." I wanted to turn the car around and confront Liam directly, tell him to stay the hell away from Sophia, but I'd been down that road before. Direct confrontation just gives Liam ammunition. He twists everything, makes me look crazy or jealous, and my parents always take his side. "Let's just not see them for a while," I suggested. "We'll come up with excuses for family stuff." Sophia nodded, but she seemed distracted. "That's probably best," she said, but I had a feeling that Liam wouldn't let this go. Every girlfriend I'd ever had was a potential target for Liam, but with Sophia, it was different. The way he looked at her wasn't just about hurting me anymore. He wanted her for himself, and Liam always gets what he wants. My parents made sure of that our entire lives. Things got way worse after that dinner. It started about 3 days later. Sophia was getting ready for her morning shift at the hospital when her phone rang from a number she didn't recognize. When she answered, there was just heavy breathing, then they hung up. She brushed it off as a wrong number or spam call. Later that same day, another call from a different unknown number. This time, when she answered, a guy's voice said, "You're not as hot as Liam said you were." Still stuck up though, then they hung up. Sophia told me about it that night, clearly creeped out. "It was weird they knew my name," she said. "I immediately thought of Liam but didn't want to jump to conclusions yet. Could have been a random weirdo from the hospital or something." But by the end of the week, Sophia had blocked 6 different numbers. The voicemails were getting more specific, mentioning stuff like, "Niece blew scrubs today," or "Saw you at Kroger buying that healthy crap." Someone was definitely watching her. I listened to one of the voicemails and recognized the voice immediately. Noah, Liam's best friend since high school. The same douchebag who helped spread rumors about me back in the day. The same guy who still follows Liam around like he's some kind of god. "It's your brother behind this," Sophia said, showing me a new text that had just come in. "Playing hard to get is cute, but getting old. You know you'd rather be with a real man instead of his loser brother." I felt that old, familiar rage building up, the same feeling I'd had all those times. Liam had ruined things and gotten away with it. But this time was different. This wasn't just about me anymore. Sophia didn't deserve this crap. She started checking her rearview mirror on the drive home from work, started calling me when she had late shifts, started jumping whenever her phone buzzed. The strong, confident woman I fell in love with was being systematically worn down, and I knew exactly who was responsible. I wasn't going to let it happen. Without telling Sophia, I texted Liam, "Meet me at Keller Park in an hour." No excuses. I half expected him to blow me off, but he responded almost immediately. "Damn, you sound serious." "All right, big bro, let's chat." By the time I pulled into the nearly empty parking lot, Liam was already there, leaning against his car, arms crossed, looking every bit as smug as always. "Wow, a dramatic meeting in the park," he said as I got out of my car. "Didn't think you had it in you, Ethan." I walked right up to him, getting in his face. "You stay the hell away from Sophia, you and your little minions." Liam chuckled, shaking his head. "God, you're so predictable, always acting like the protective boyfriend. Tell me, does she even like that? Or is she just waiting for someone with a little more confidence?" Before he could say another word, I grabbed the front of his shirt and shoved him hard against his car. His smirk faltered for a split second, replaced by something colder. "This isn't high school, Liam," I said. "You don't get to play your little mind games anymore. You so much as look at Sophia again, and I swear to God, I will make you regret it." Liam tilted his head, studying me, then let out a slow, mocking laugh. "Wow, I think you almost believe that." I slammed him against the car again, harder this time. "Try me." For the first time in his life, Liam didn't have some quick comeback. His cocky mask slipped, just for a second. Then, as if flipping a switch, he let out another chuckle and smoothed out his shirt, like none of this had rattled him. "Jesus, Ethan, lighten up. It's all in good fun." I stepped back, shaking my head. "You don't know what fun is, Liam. You only know how to destroy people. But you're not touching Sophia, not now, not ever." I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me cold. I knew Liam wasn't going to stop. I could see it in his eyes. This was just a game to him, a game he had no intention of losing. As I expected, things got even worse. Noah and another of Liam's friends, this meathead named Caleb, started showing up at the hospital. They'd sit in the pediatric ward waiting room for hours, never actually visiting any patients, just watching Sophia work. When her supervisor asked if they needed help, they'd claim they were waiting for someone or checking on a relative. Sophia started having anxiety before her shifts. "I feel like I'm being hunted," she told me one night. And the fear in her eyes made me want to burn my brother's world to the ground. The breaking point came about 3 weeks after the dinner. Sophia called me at 11:30 p.m., her voice shaking so badly I could barely understand her. "There's someone following me," she whispered. "I'm in my car in the hospital parking garage, but I'm afraid to drive home, Ethan." I'm scared. I grabbed my keys without even thinking. "Lock your doors." "I'm coming right now." As I sped to the hospital, my mind was racing. Sophia's next shift started in 8 hours. If she missed it because of this harassment, she could lose the job she loved. Her supervisor had already noticed her performance slipping. She'd been late twice last week because she'd been too anxious to sleep properly. We had days, not weeks, before this situation completely derailed her career. When I got to the garage, I found Sophia huddled in her car, doors locked, constantly checking her mirrors. Caleb's beat-up Jeep was parked 2 spaces away, its engine still warm. The coward had taken off when he saw my car pull in. Sophia was shaking as she moved to my passenger seat. I drove her car home, while my buddy followed behind us to make sure we weren't being tailed. That night, as Sophia finally fell into an exhausted sleep, I made a decision. I couldn't wait any longer to confront Liam in front of my parents, thinking they would try to control this BS. This had to end before Sophia lost everything. The next morning, I gathered all the evidence recordings of the calls, screenshots of the texts, security footage from the hospital showing Noah and Caleb hanging around for hours. I drove to my parents' house, knowing Liam would be there before heading to work at my dad's office. Liam was eating cereal and scrolling through his phone when I walked in without knocking. My mom started to say something about calling first, but I ignored her. I dropped my phone on the table in front of Liam and played one of the voicemails. "We know when you get off work, Sophia. Maybe you shouldn't walk to your car alone." Liam looked up from his Captain Crunch with mild interest, like I was showing him a mildly entertaining TikTok. "What's this supposed to be? Cut the crap, Liam. I know it's Noah and Caleb. Call them off now." Liam's expression never changed. That's what always made him so dangerous, the disconnect between the venom in his words and the pleasantness of his face. Maybe if Sophia wasn't such a tease, guys wouldn't feel the need to let her know she's not all that, he said. calmly, taking another spoonful of cereal. Not my problem if she's giving out mixed signals. Something in me snapped. 28 years of swallowing my anger, of playing the reasonable one, of letting Liam slither his way out of every disgusting thing he'd ever done. It all exploded in that instant. I didn't hesitate. My fist slammed into his face like a hammer, the impact cracking through the room like a gunshot. Liam's head whipped back so violently he nearly toppled over. Milk, spit, and blood sprayed across the table in a gruesome mix. A deep red gash split his lip, already swelling, and his nose burst open like a crushed tomato, blood gushing down his chin. For the first time in his pathetic life, I saw something new in his eyes, fear. Then he started screaming, wailing like I'd just taken a baseball bat to his skull instead of my fist. The little bastard collapsed onto the floor, clutching his face, rolling like he was dying. My parents came running, right on cue, the same script, the same since years, just a different day. Oh my God, my baby. My mom threw herself to her knees, hands shaking as she grabbed a kitchen towel and pressed it to Liam's ruined face. What the hell is wrong with you, Ethan? My dad roared, stomping toward me, his face red with fury. Are you insane? You need help. Your jealousy issues have gotten out of control. Jealousy? I stared at them, breathing hard, hands still clenched into fists. Liam's blood smeared across my knuckles. They weren't looking at me. They never did. They were hovering over their golden son, their broken little monster, just as they always had. And for the first time, I truly saw them for what they were: blind, weak, worthless. I tried to show them the evidence on my phone, but they weren't interested, hadn't even asked why I'd hit him. Sophia's been throwing herself at him for weeks. My mom spat, her arm wrapped around Liam like a shield, like he was the victim here. What did you expect, Ethan? She scoffed. You bring a pretty girl around and think Liam wouldn't notice? Please! She's been leading him on, flirting with him, playing her little games. And now what? You can't handle a little competition, so you're making up these pathetic stories. Competition? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He's stalking her. His friends are following her at work. She's terrified. Get out of this house, my dad said quietly, dangerously. Don't come back until you've gotten professional help and apologized to your brother. I looked at Liam, still playing the victim with our mom fussing over him, but his eyes told the real story, that same smug satisfaction. I'd seen my whole life when he got away with his crap. He'd won again, or so he thought. On the drive home, my hands were still shaking from adrenaline. I called Sophia to tell her what happened. So they didn't believe you? She asked, though I could tell she wasn't surprised. They didn't even look at the evidence, just jumped straight to defending Liam. She couldn't believe it. I hung up while my mind was still racing on what I should do to keep her protected from my own brother. When I got home, I found her sitting on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, her hands gripping the fabric of her sweater like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Her voice was small when she finally spoke. Ethan, this isn't going to stop, is it? I didn't lie to her. I couldn't. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling slowly before meeting her eyes. I don't think so. As long as Liam's obsessed with you, my jaw clenched. And as long as my parents keep feeding his delusions. She swallowed hard, looking away, her fingers tightening. Seeing her like that, scared of my own family, I felt I'm the cause, and it hurt me deep. I moved closer, tilting her little chin up so she had no choice but to see me, see the promise in my eyes. But listen to me, babe. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what I have to do. He will never touch you. He will never take you from me. I will protect you, always. She blinked up at me, something shifting in her expression, and then she threw her arms around me, clinging to me like I was the only solid thing in her world. I felt her tremble, her breath unsteady against my neck. She wanted to believe me. I needed her to believe me. But deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't over, not even close. That night, we stopped waiting for the inevitable and started preparing for war. I installed cameras, reinforced the locks, made damn sure no one got within a mile of her without me knowing. Sophia called her lawyer friend, started the paperwork for restraining orders. We weren't just defending ourselves anymore. We were going on offense. Liam could take everything from me since the day he was born, my childhood, my dignity, my peace, but Sophia? Sophia was mine, and this time I wasn't backing down. About a week after I confronted Liam, my mom started blowing up my phone, left like 20 messages saying Liam was devastated by the misunderstanding and wanted to apologize. They all wanted to make things right. She kept using words like family healing and putting this ugliness behind us. When I told Sophia about it, she immediately said, "Don't go. This feels like a trap," and I knew she was right. Of course she was right, but I also knew something else, something I couldn't ignore. If I didn't go, Liam would think I was afraid of him. He'd think he won. That's how Liam stupidly operated. If you back down, if you let him push you away, that was his green light to go harder, dig deeper, ruin more. And I refused to give him that satisfaction. This wasn't about fixing anything. This wasn't about family healing or forgiveness. This was about making it clear, once and for all, where I stood. We'll go together, I decided. The first sign of anything weird, we leave. I promise. When we walked in, the house was packed. My parents, Liam, my aunt and uncle who've always treated Liam like he walks on water, and worst of all, Noah and Caleb, the same ones who'd been stalking Sophia at the hospital. "What the hell is this?" I asked, automatically putting my arm around Sophia protectively. "We're here to help you and Sophia work through this situation," my mom said with this fake therapist voice that made me want to puke. What followed was 2 hours of the most twisted gaslighting I've ever seen. They took turns explaining how Sophia had obviously been flirting with Liam at dinner, how she must have led him on and then panicked when she realized I might find out, how the hospital visits were innocent and Sophia was paranoid from working too many night shifts. Liam played his part perfectly, looking wounded, saying how much he'd looked forward to welcoming Sophia to the family. Noah actually had the balls to describe what Sophia had been wearing on specific days at work, and my parents nodded like this proved she was seeking attention rather than being stalked. I watched Sophia's face grow paler as they systematically tried to make her doubt her own reality. When Caleb started describing exactly which hallway she'd walked down on Tuesday, proving he'd been following her, Sophia's breathing changed. She was starting to have a panic attack. "We need to leave," I said, helping her up. My mom grabbed my arm hard. "Ethan, it's time to choose. Your real family or this girl who's clearly trying to come between us." I looked at her, really seeing her for the first time in my life. Sophia is my family now, and if you can't see what Liam is doing, that's on you. The next day, Sophia's supervisor called her into the office, her expression already tense. "Concerns have been raised," she started carefully, like she didn't want to say the words out loud, "about you causing drama at work." The minute she said it, I knew this was Liam. Someone had been spreading rumors, whispers about Sophia having mental health issues, about her being untrustworthy, about a so-called history of making false accusations against men, pure poison expertly placed. She had 3 days to decide, accept a transfer to another department or face a formal review. The job she loved, the kids she cared for, Liam was taking it all away, just like he always did. That night, as we sat in silence at our kitchen table, an email notification popped up on Sophia's laptop, a message from an old colleague, a position, a fresh start, a hospital 300 miles away. Sophia read the offer letter, fingers hovering over the trackpad. She didn't look up when she spoke. "He's not going to stop, is he?" I knew he wouldn't, but I didn't tell her. I just made the decision. "We leave." Her eyes snapped up. "We're done letting him control our lives, Sophia. We're done giving him chances to twist the knife. I don't care what it takes. I don't care if we have to start from scratch. We're getting the hell out of here, somewhere he can't touch us. For a moment, she just stared at me. Then her shoulders relaxed, like she was finally releasing a breath she'd been holding for months. That night, she started looking at apartments. I started making calls about moving logistics, while all I could think about was how Liam had taken everything from me since we were kids, my childhood, my peace, my relationships, but Sophia? This was where the cycle ended. He wasn't taking her, not now, not ever. I was ready to erase him from my life completely, to never see his face or hear his name again. We had our new city, our fresh start. We were finally free, or at least we thought we were. Just when we were settling into that peace, my cousin Mia called. Mia was the only one who'd ever seen through Liam's act. When they were kids, she caught him hurting her cat and told everyone, but my parents convinced the family she was lying for attention. She never forgot that. She called personally to invite us to her wedding. Liam will be there because my parents insisted, she admitted. But I've hired security specifically to keep an eye on him, and you'll be seated with my husband's family, far from your parents. After 3 months of relative peace in our new city, we decided to attend. Sophia had a new job she loved. I was working remotely. Things were good, and we felt strong enough to face my family for one day, especially with Mia's precautions in place. The ceremony went fine. Liam was a groomsman for Mia's husband, Ryan, my cousin from the other side of the family who didn't know about all the drama, so he was busy during most of it. At the reception, we kept our distance, sitting with Ryan's family while Liam and my parents were across the room. For a few hours, it seemed like we might actually get through the day without incident. Sophia was even laughing and dancing, something I hadn't seen her do in months. Around 9:00 p.m., Sophia went to the bathroom. After about 10 minutes, I noticed Liam wasn't at his table anymore. Something in my gut screamed that something was wrong. I headed toward the restrooms, my heart pounding. As I rounded the corner, I heard Sophia cry out. I started running, but Ryan and his brother Daniel were coming from the other direction and reached them first. What I saw will be burned into my brain forever. Liam had Sophia pinned against the wall in the hallway outside the bathrooms, one hand over her mouth, the other gripping her arm so tightly his knuckles were white. Her dress was torn at the shoulder. Ryan and Daniel were pulling Liam off her as I got there. Sophia stumbled toward me, shaking violently. There were already bruises forming on her arm in the shape of fingers. Liam's eyes were wild, unfocused. He reeked of booze. She's been asking for it all night, he slurred, struggling against Ryan's grip. Following me around, coming on to me, all I saw was red. Before I even knew what I was doing, I lunged, tackled Liam to the ground. I beat his face so hard I felt something crack, a sickening crunch. His nose or his cheekbone. I didn't care which. I wanted him to die. He let out a strangled yell, but I wasn't stopping. I reared back, ready to break him apart with my bare hands. Arms wrapped around me, yanking me backward, Daniel, Ryan, maybe both holding me back as I fought against them, struggling to get free, to finish what I started. Ethan, stop, Ryan's voice cut through the haze of rage. We've got him. He's done. Daniel, a cop in another city, immediately called the local police. I got Sophia to a private room where Mia and her mother helped clean her up and calm her down. When the police arrived, my parents lost their minds. My mom physically tried to block them from Liam, screaming about misunderstandings and how that girl has been obsessed with my son. My dad actually tried to grab an officer's arm when they were handcuffing Liam. Liam's behavior changed, like someone flipped a switch. One minute he was crying, saying Sophia had seduced him. The next, he was threatening everyone, screaming, "None of you understand what I'm capable of." As they finally loaded him into the police car, he shouted the vilest things about Sophia that made even the officers wince. Several guests had their phones out, recording everything. As the police car pulled away, taking that bastard out of our sight, I turned to Sophia. She was still shaking, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. like she was trying to hold herself together. Her eyes were unfocused. I reached for her gently. "Sophia?" My voice broke, and I swallowed hard before trying again. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you anywhere else?" She didn't answer at first, just stared at the ground. Then, finally, she blinked up at me and I saw it, the fear, the betrayal, the exhaustion. I had brought her into this nightmare. I had let this happen. I cupped her face, brushing back the strands of hair Liam had yanked loose. "I'm so sorry, baby," my throat tightened. "I should have protected you. I should have never let you near him." She shook her head. "You didn't do this, Ethan. He did." I wanted to believe that. I really did, but the guilt burned deep. I wrapped her in my arms, holding her against my chest, feeling the way her body still trembled. She wasn't just the woman I loved. She was my only real family, the only thing in this world that mattered. And if anyone ever laid a hand on her again, I would tear this entire world apart. The days after the wedding were complete chaos. My parents went on a full psycho rampage, calling literally everyone in the family to spread their twisted version of events. Thank God for evidence. Mia's wedding video clearly showed Liam following Sophia to the bathroom. Multiple guests witnessed him making creepy comments about her throughout the night. And, of course, there were the cell phone videos of his drunken confession during the arrest, where he basically admitted everything. Sophia and I were dealing with the legal aftermath when my parents showed up at our apartment unannounced. They caused such a scene that our neighbors called the cops. My mom was sobbing about how I was sending her baby to jail, while my dad made threats about making sure I never worked in this state again. I gave a crap about his connections at that point. They switched between guilt trips about destroying the family and threats about cutting me off financially, though I hadn't taken a dime from them in years. My mom actually said, "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" As if they were the victims in all this. Sophia and I didn't waste time. We fortified everything, changed our routines, upgraded our security, made sure no one could get near us without us knowing. The restraining order against Liam was just a piece of paper. We both knew that wouldn't stop him if he really wanted to get to us. Distance was our only real protection. I got a call from Mia a week after the wedding. Liam had been denied bail due to the severity of the assault charges and his recorded threats. He was going to be in jail until the trial, which could take months. My parents were apparently telling everyone who would listen that the justice system was biased against young men and that Liam was the real victim in all this. Mia also mentioned that several family members had taken our side after seeing the wedding videos. Even my Uncle Phil, who had always been Team Liam, called my parents delusional after watching the footage of the assault and Liam's arrest. That was 4 years ago. Since then, Sophia and I built a pretty good life. We got married in a small ceremony with Mia's family and Sophia's relatives. Sophia became head pediatric nurse at her hospital. I got promoted to senior developer. We bought a house, planted a garden, made new friends. Sophia's now pregnant a little girl, due in 3 months. Life was good, normal, peaceful. Then yesterday, my phone rang with an unknown number. It was my mom, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. The story that came out between her sobs was insane. Turns out Liam only served about 18 months for the wedding assault. His fancy lawyer got the charges reduced, and he was released on good behavior about 2 years ago. None of us knew because we'd completely cut contact with that side of the family. After getting out, Liam apparently joined some church recovery program where he met this woman named Emily. According to my mom, the church really pushed their relationship as some kind of redemption story, and they got married just 6 months after meeting. My parents and Emily's family were all supportive, thinking Liam was reformed or whatever. According to my mom, everything had been perfect until last week, when Emily's coworker called the police after she missed several days of work. The welfare check found Emily with 2 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and bruises everywhere. What was really messed up was that during the investigation, They discovered my dad had been actively helping Liam cover up the abuse for months. Every time Emily threatened to leave, my dad would step in, threatening her job, pressuring her family about their mortgage, convincing her parents she was unstable and making things up. Apparently, when Emily got a promotion that would have given her financial independence, Liam beat her so badly she couldn't go to work. When she called my dad for help, he told her to put some ice on it and remember her wedding vows. Both Liam and my dad were arrested. Liam for domestic violence, my dad for witness intimidation and conspiracy. Since Liam was still on probation from the assault on Sophia, he's looking at serious time now. "You have to come home," my mom begged. "Family needs to stick together in crisis. Your brother and father need your support." That Emily girl is obviously exaggerating everything, just like Sophia did 4 years ago. Nothing had changed. "Mom," I said quietly, "did you ever consider that if you and Dad had gotten Liam help when we were kids, maybe Emily wouldn't be in the hospital right now?" She broke down completely, admitting they'd always known Liam had issues but thought they were protecting him. "It's too late for that," I said and hung up. Sophia suggested we reach out to Emily through Mia to offer support. "She needs someone who understands what she's going through," Sophia said. A month later, Liam took a plea deal, 8 years in prison. My dad's real estate license was suspended, and most of his business partners cut ties with him. My mom moved out and filed for divorce, sending me a long letter apologizing for everything enabling Liam throughout his life, not protecting me as a child, and especially for how they treated Sophia. Too little, too late. As I watched Sophia talk to our unborn daughter while watering our garden that evening, I felt no satisfaction in being right about Liam all these years, only determination that the cycle ends with me. Our daughter will grow up knowing nothing but healthy love and respect. Liam took a lot from me over the years, but he couldn't take the life Sophia and I built together. Some people just don't change, but thanks to Sophia, I did.